Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and hello to anyone who is new, who is just tuning in. I'm Marianne Guevara and I like reading books and talking about books. And if you like to do the same thing, please feel free to, leave a like and subscribe. Today I'm going to be talking about or discussing my November wrap-up. I finally found enough time to do so. So I read a total of 6 books and I won't be going into depth with the summaries in this November wrap-up. I'm just gonna give you my straight-up thoughts. I discussed 3 of these book summaries in my previous video, which is my book haul. But if you want to know about the summaries of each book that I have mentioned, feel free to pause the video and find a synopsis on Goodreads or anywhere else. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I read in the month of November is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is one of the books that is classified as part of the dark academia genre, something that has gone pretty popular as of recently. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I felt that this was a solid read. There is a mystery within this novel, and it's basically a mystery along with a subtle character study. Basically, we're following this group of friends, seeing their dynamics shift over time, and also trying to find out along the way who may have committed the crime. I will have to admit that the mystery itself wasn't that mind-blowing or anything, like nothing left, out of left field. But I think for its short page count, I think it did a pretty good job of keeping me entertained. I think it did well in introducing to the characters, and while I never got really deep into character study, I think they were established well enough, and the mystery was entertaining enough. So yeah, I think overall it was a success. I do have to admit though that a lot of people like to gush about this ending, and the reason why it was also 4 stars or anything is because the ending, the more I think about it, the more I don't like it, and the more I'm convinced that the author just put it there to give the book one last whoa factor, because the more I think about it, the more it doesn't make any sense. But overall, I thought this was a solid book, a solid addition to the dark academia genre. So yeah, that's If We Were Villains. So the next book I read after If We Were Villains is one of the books that I showed in my previous book haul, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Now, this one, if you watch that video, I highly recommend that you do. I mentioned that I bought this as a mistake. I mistook it for another book, but I ended up reading it anyway, and I really, really enjoyed this one. It's exactly what I wanted it. It's a short, scary novel. That's basically it. And I'm very hesitant on giving anything from the plot, because frankly, it's highly recommended that you go into this blind, and I would agree. I read this in one sitting, which I rarely do. This is like a bit over 200 pages, and I have no problem with splitting a book like 100 pages a day, but I finished this in one night. The way I would describe this is if some stranger's cold fingertips were running down your spine, running down your backside. That's what this felt for me. I felt, just completely tense throughout, the novel. And I'm not gonna lie, I got pretty scared, and I don't really scare easily when it comes to horror books. And I can really appreciate the fact that it was able to scare me in such a short amount of time. That's exactly what I wanted out of this. It's very polarizing. It has like 3.5 stars on Goodreads, and I can understand why. But it's definitely a book that you have to experience for yourself. I really enjoyed this. It was completely atmospheric, had unsettling imagery, like what it asks for you to imagine. Like, I think it was very effective, very, very effective. And with such a short amount of pages, I think that's a great plus for me. So I give this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, I would highly recommend I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Now, my favorite book that I read in the month of November would definitely have to be The Memory of Babel. If you watch my previous video, my book haul, this was also included there. And I also mentioned in that video, I talked more comprehensively about the series that this book is a part of. So I won't go into detail with the plot because, like I said, it is part of a series. It's the third book in the series. And to explain anything in detail basically is just gonna be spoiling what happens in book 1 and 2. So I would suggest that you watch that video, and I would recommend that you just read the series. So anyway, The Memory of Babel, I mentioned, is the third book, and we're following Ophelia and Thorn, and they have moved to a different setting. So right away, we have a change of cast. So I think like the one tiny gripe that I have about this book is the fact that the characters that we have come to really enjoy and care about have been put on the back burner, mainly because, you know, we're just in a different setting and we're just introduced to new characters. But what I really appreciate about it is that the major overarching plot, which was really established in the previous book, The Missing of Claire de Lune, there's much more information being added, and towards the end, the major plot really kicks into gear. I'm just gonna say that if you've started the series already, just keep going, because Memory of Babel was excellent, and I'm looking very much forward to the fourth and final book and its English translation. So this was a 5 out of 5 stars. After The Memory of Babel, I also tackled another book that I mentioned in my previous book haul, and that is Mermaid Moon. I gave a summary of this book in my book haul, so yeah, just for the 1 billionth time, just watch that video. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really liked a lot about it. I liked the prose. I liked the world building, because we're focusing on 2 worlds. We're talking about the tribe of mermaids that our main character Sana is part of, but then also the one on land, the 37 Dark Isles, I think that's what they're called, and their culture. And we go back and forth, and I feel like the author did a great job of fleshing out both of these worlds. And I also really like the magic system in this one as well. It's very unique, not something that I've seen quite often. The one gripe that I have about this book is that I felt there was a great disconnect or emotional disconnect between me and the main protagonist, and ultimately me and the book. It's weird because I can understand it, because, you know, Sana is a mermaid and we're experiencing her journey through her eyes. We're seeing, you know, the human world being filtered and rationalized through her own mermaid brain, mermaid experience. But in terms of personality, she just comes off as very subdued, to the point of being pretty cold and sterile. I will have to admit, wider range to her personality is explored towards the end of the book. But yeah, for the most part, I couldn't form a connection with her. So that really brought it down to like a 3.5. But overall, everything else was pretty good. You're not gonna really connect with any of the characters, but as a mermaid story, I felt that it was one of the better ones out there. So yeah, Mermaid Moon. And now we move on to a pretty famous book on BookTube. A lot of people rave about this book, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now, I mentioned ML Rio's If We Were Villains and how that was part of the dark academia genre. The Secret History, if there ever was a book that was the mascot for dark academia, it would be this one. I really enjoyed this one. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this kept me intrigued for a great amount of time. Like, I would get like 100 pages, more than 100 pages per day, which is pretty good for me. That's a good sign that I'm well invested. It is pretty much a character study. Really delving into this friend group, seeing this dynamic from the point of view of ultimately who is, you know, ultimately a stranger. This is a book that is raising the veil or taking away the rose-tinted glasses, because initially these characters, this friend group, is introduced to us as, you know, eccentric, charismatic, you know, there's something about them that pulls you in. But the more as the book continues on, we're slowly revealed just how dark and corrupt they pretty much all are, and seeing their dynamic come off or established as, you know, pretty close, pretty tight, and then just seeing it unravel it was very satisfying, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Taking it in as a character study, but then also the action, I don't want to say action, but like I don't want to say mystery either, but the intrigue, you know, the crime they commit and the fallout of it, that was interesting to follow as well. So overall, I found this to be a dark, sumptuous, you know, psychological thriller. That's ultimately what it was. And I would definitely say I can understand why people don't like it. You know, it is chunky. It's like over 500 pages long. But like I said, this is a character study. Donna Tartt really delves into painting out or fleshing out these characters. So if she shirked on the character building, this wouldn't have been as effective, at least to me. And then I've heard people claim that it's very pretentious, and you know what? I think that's just the point of the book. So yeah, I'd say give it a go. See which camp you're in, if you love it or if you don't. But I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. So the last book that I read for the month of November was The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. So we went back to some sci-fi at the end of November, and this one really surprised me. This is very much a cultural study or an anthropology study, and it has, for some reason, it feels like a fantasy. I'm saying this because Le Guin focuses more on the social, cultural, and political aspects of this alien world that she has crafted, Gethen, this winter planet. And while doing so, she really fleshes out this world. A lot of time is devoted to world building, and it goes into great detail, like a lot of detail. In fact, at the end of this book, there is a Gethenian calendar and clock that she provides. Now, I really admire the length of detail, the length and depth of detail that she provides the reader. It is a double-edged sword because she really does not hold her hand. Like, you are dropped into this novel and you are bombarded with a lot of alien terms, for certain days, certain hours, you know, political factions, houses, and everything. And you pretty much have to figure it out on your own as you're reading the book. And it made the book very, very confusing to follow. But I think once you got the hang of it, you know, you start to really appreciate it. And ultimately, this is a very, very beautiful book that has a lot to say on topics about, you know, gender, about, you know, cultural differences, how we can bridge said cultural differences. It's a pretty fantastic science fiction novel that really delves into, you know, the heart or the soul of understanding something completely alien to us. And I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars at the end. This was a pretty overwhelming book at first, but it's one strange enough that I feel that I ought to go back to pretty soon. I feel that now that I'm more accustomed to Gethen, its people, its customs, and everything, I'll have a much better time, you know, understanding it and really taking everything in. Because this packs a punch, man. You got politics, you got philosophy, you got religion, you got a lot of things in here. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars. So that was my November wrap-up. Thanks for stopping by and listening to all my thoughts on the books that I've read, and hopefully I can get some reading done in December. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and once again, thanks for stopping by.